Historically, journalists have been forced into a one-to-many model. Generative AI at its best is going to help us transform from that one-to-many model to a one-to-one for-many model. Newsrooms are experimenting with AI in a lot of different ways. They're doing it on the individual level where reporters are improving their own productivity or helping to identify story ideas. They're doing it at the newsroom level where they're finding new ways to generate draft headlines. And they're doing it at the corporate level where they're trying to improve the kinds of marketing messages they might offer or better implement dynamic pricing. And we're seeing widespread innovation and experimentation, but not always in the most strategic ways. It really depends on the intention of the news organization. Are they trying just to minimize their costs, or are they trying to actually improve the product and therefore help the audiences and the journalists who are creating it through the use of these tools and technologies? Low-quality content, whether it's generated by AI or just by bad journalists or journalists hurrying and not really investing in their work, is not helpful. It's not good for audiences. It's not good for society. There is a short moment that unfortunately we're in now where maybe you can get away with creating AI-generated slop and surfacing that on search engines or distributing that via social media. That's not going to work for very long. Audiences are too savvy for that to be effective. If all you as a news organization do is put out low quality content that tricks your audience into looking at it at least briefly, you're not going to be successful. On the other hand, I do believe that AI powered tools can help journalists do their jobs better. Historically, journalists have been forced into a one-to-many model. We've tried to minimize the time and the cost of producing stories and show them to as many people as possible. So we write them in ways that will appeal to the most people possible, but not necessarily to any individual person. Generative AI at its best is going to help us transform from that one-to-many model to a one-to-one for-many model, where we can start to say, what does each individual audience member want and need? And that could be about the format. It could be video versus text or audio versus video. It could be about the length. It could be about how linguistically complex the text is or how much background information is included. If we can use generative AI to help customize, to personalize, to individualize the content, we can make better content in the same way that now we would think a reporter negligent if they don't use spell check and grammar check. In the near term, if you're not using generative AI, you're not doing your job as well as you possibly can. Filter bubbles are a very real problem for our society. It's difficult when you only get news and information that affirms your already held beliefs. But AI is no more likely to contribute to that than any of the other technologies that came before it. Digital distribution, especially social platforms, enable us to see as much or as little as we want that challenges our already held beliefs. If, on the other hand, we say, what our goal for these technologies is to challenge people's already held beliefs, then we can build systems and tools that help with that. We can deliberately inform reporters and editors when they use subconsciously partisan language. We can make recommendations for other content that you might want to see that will help expand your lens. Generative AI is not going to be a replacement for human journalists. It's just not. It's not going to be a better editor than a human editor. It's not going to be a better reporter than a human reporter. Any newsroom or news organization that believes that they can get away with not having reporters and using generative AI instead are going to be severely disappointed. I think we're going to see generative AI tools used throughout storytelling. So whether we're talking about corporate communications or public relations or newsrooms or the ways that all of those different types of entities interact with each other, consumers' expectations are changing. and they are going to demand more personalized, more customized content. And so in newsrooms, the expectation is going to be that the press release or the marketing information is going to be tuned in a way that will help that person understand why their audience might care. But generative AI is also going to change the kinds of communications that we get. I don't think a press release that goes to 100 journalists in 100 different newsrooms can be written the same way anymore. I don't think that will be valuable. Instead, we're going to have to see something that is more tuned and customized to who's receiving it. If only large tech companies get to shape and define what large language models look like and how they work, we as communications professionals will be at their mercy. If we want these models to work in the ways that are best for us and for our industry, then we have to help develop them. And we have to make clear what matters to us and what makes the models work better. So we can't just sit back and say, this is what a particular model allows us to do. We have to say, this is what we need a model to do for our discipline and the way that we communicate.